Hey everyone, welcome back to the Privacy Wayfinder. I've been gone for a long time, so just a quick update of where I'm at. I'm still on GrapheneOS. I'm now running a Pixel 8a. I think the last video I had a Pixel 7 or a 7a, one of those. I had those phones about a year ago. I drove off in my car and left the Pixel 7 on the roof of my car, and that flew away. No clue where that went. And then I had a Pixel 7a, and after about 6 months, the screen went completely black on me. So those two instances, sucked, but at least I had good backups of my phone, my KeePass DX database, basically everything. So if anyone's curious as to, my backup process and what I do, I can make a video on that. However, what I wanted to talk about today was Android 15, and I just downloaded the recent update to GrapheneOS, and it now has a feature called private spaces. So I'm just quickly filming this using the screen record function on the phone. This is the Pixel 8a microphone, just using the screen record function. Hopefully it comes out okay. This is kind of like the first time I'm doing it like this. But let's talk about private spaces. To create a private space, go to Settings, go to Security and Privacy, and here we have Private Space. It's going to verify that it's me. And here's the screen that you are presented when you click on that button. So it keeps your apps in a completely separate space. The files do not talk with your personal profile. So the profiles on your main profile are called now personal profile, and then also your private space profile. So between those two, the personal and the private, the files are not shared and the apps are kept completely separate. And what you can do with this private space is also create a separate PIN code so that you can log into your personal profile, and if you wanted to access your private profile or your private space, you can choose to have a separate code so that if anyone knows the code to your phone, it can be completely separate so they still can access that private space. So to set it up, bottom right, hit setup. And in the next screen, you get to choose to use your current screen lock, your fingerprint, or whatever PIN code you have for your personal space. However, let's just choose a new lock. So we're going to do that, and we're going to enter the PIN of our current profile. Okay, and then once you enter the PIN for your personal profile, then it takes you to the page where you can choose a new PIN for your personal space. So you can choose to use the fingerprint or just a PIN. So let's just do continue without fingerprint. And now we get to just choose our PIN. And now your private space is set up, so we can hit done. To access your private space, you would need to swipe up to get to the app drawer and swipe all the way down to find your private space. Now you see this bottom section that says private. We can click on it. We'll put in our password, hit enter. And now it opens up your private space with all of the private stock apps in here. So all of these apps down here, App Store, Auditor, they are all apps within your private space on top of the apps in your personal space. So you can see here, got the App Store in your private space, but you also got the App Store in your personal space. So let's do an example. From the App Store, let's download a Crescent. So we're going to click on that. We're going to install. Okay, so a Crescent is now installed on our phone. So if you go back, in addition to the stock apps in your private space at the bottom, you now have the additional apps you just downloaded at the top next to the install button. So we got a Crescent there, and anything we download now from a Crescent, such as organic maps or anything from here, like Molly, these will all show up only in your private space. And when you're done using your private space, you can just hit lock. And all of the apps in that private space are now completely closed. They're shut off until you open up private space again. So one other thing that I wanted to discuss was you can still control the permissions in your private space for each app. So if we go to private, you can see here that there's no settings button in your private space. We do have the settings down here in our personal space, but no separate settings in the private space. That's because they're all controlled by the same settings app. So if we go to the settings in our personal space, and before we do that, there's also this settings button here, but that settings button is just for the private space settings. To change your lock, you can change the pin, etc. Let's access the settings in our personal space. If we go to settings, and if we go to apps, and let's go to see all apps, you see now we have two tabs, personal and private. So personal, these are all the apps I have in my personal space. And then private are all of the apps in your private space. So if you wanted to, you can see I have a crescent here at the top in my personal space where I download, I think I downloaded organic maps and Molly from a crescent, and you can access that and adjust all the permissions in here for that specific app. You can also do that in the private tab. So go to private. Now we can adjust specifically the Crescent app in the private space, and you still got all the same functionality, to set your permissions. You can accept sensors, etc. All of that stuff here. So I just wanted to mention that. That's something that as I was playing around, I kind of figured out. And then another thing is VPN. So I have Movad VPN here in my personal space, but you can also download a VPN provider in your private space, and everything that's running in your private space can run on a different VPN, or you can download, let's say, Movad VPN again, but run it out of a different country. So my personal space, I can choose a server out of Texas, while my Movad VPN in the private space, I can choose it to run out of, say, Sweden or Switzerland or wherever, right? Whatever server you want to hook up to. And all of the apps in that private space and the connections in that private space will run to Sweden versus your personal space will run to Texas. So in this one main profile, you can have two VPNs where your personal space connects to one server and your private space connects to another. And I did test it out, and it does work. All right, so hopefully that gave everyone a good idea of private space in GrapheneOS. And I just wanted to also show in general that it works. Thanks for watching, and see you guys in the next one.